Police paid for a hotel room for their star witness. Simeon Taylor cancelled the booking, checked out and kept the refund, £320. It was theft. Joe Anderson became aware of what had happened and believed his colleagues had deliberately failed to record it because they knew it could jeopardise the murder investigation.
After that, I thought enough's enough, so I put quite a lengthy report in to draw the senior force executive's attention to exactly what was happening. And my recommendation was at that point that we should get him off the scheme and let him go.
Which would have meant the investigation would have collapsed without him.
That was clearly the thought of a number of people in the office, that if we withdrew the protection and we withdrew the money that we were giving him, that he would therefore not cooperate. I had a slightly different view, that he may still cooperate, but as far as I was concerned, it was more important that we behaved with integrity and professionally rather than just keep putting up with this dangerous behaviour. Constantly the word that kept being used to me was, we must get into court at all costs.
Taylor had signed a memorandum of understanding, a code of conduct by which he agreed to abide, but breached it 76 times and was given 3 written warnings. Despite this, the force's then head of crime, Assistant Chief Constable Suzette Davenport, recommended that he continue to be granted protected witness status. In her first interview on the subject, she says she also had a duty of care.
The bottom line is that because of the type of lifestyle that he was involved in, I absolutely feared that if he wasn't within that protection scheme, that he would potentially have come to significant harm. I feared for his life.
Did you think that because he was such a pivotal witness, did that effectively cloud your judgment? Was this, as I know Joe Anderson has suggested, a case that we've got to get into court at all costs?
No, and that wouldn't be my approach. Not at all costs, and that was never a phrase that I used. It's certainly not a phrase that I recollect from the time that I was in Staffordshire Police.
Joe Anderson turned whistleblower and spoke to the then head of professional standards for Staffordshire Police, Superintendent James Sawyers. He says he made specific allegations of corruption in the unit. She too has never spoken publicly about this before and says she remembers the conversation very differently.
I have very scant recollections of the meeting with Joe Anderson. My overriding memory of the meeting, he was massively frustrated with the behaviour of people in the unit who he felt were being unprofessional. He was frustrated because he felt like he wasn't getting the support from his management to deal with those frustrations and sort the unit out.
So it was more of a, as far as you can recollect, a problem with the staff within his team. What about his claim that he spoke to you about wrongdoing?
D.I. Anderson and I have got very different recollections of that meeting. I wasn't taking his complaint. He was seeing me as the head of professional standards so that I could decide what ought to happen in relation to the issues he was raising. That very same day, I discussed it with my line manager, the chief officer, with overall responsibility on the same day.
The line manager was Adrian Lee, at the time the deputy chief constable. He commissioned an internal management review, which became known as the Costello Report, named after the officer who wrote it. Its findings made uncomfortable reading for the senior officers, including Lee and Davenport, who saw it at the beginning of 2007, months before the Kevin Nunes murder trial was due to take place. It said,
"The matters raised by D.I. Anderson exposed failings in the structure, procedures, working practices, culture and management of the unit.
It raised concerns that officers were socialising and drinking with Simeon Taylor.
Integrity and professionalism of officers could be questioned if Defence Counsel challenged why officers were socialising with witnesses."
Another worry was that a member of the SPU was using the safe house where Taylor was being kept to carry on an affair with an exhibits officer working on the murder investigation. It meant that Taylor could have found out key details of the case that he wouldn't otherwise have known. His evidence could have been contaminated.
A defence lawyer may also think it inappropriate, and it could lead to undue inference being made as to the integrity and closeness of the relationship of the witness with the police.
There was another problem, the report said. So much money was being spent on Taylor that a defence lawyer might have suggested it was an inducement. Action was taken against 2 members of the SPU. One was given formal advice from a senior officer, another was moved out of the unit to other duties. Joe Anderson had expected more than just a management review and wasn't impressed with the Costello report's findings.
It's an odd thing that they chose to go down that route. When you make a criminal allegation against a police officer, there are laid down procedures that should be followed. The management review was simply a light touch look at some of the issues I raised. There were no interviews under caution carried out. There were no witness statements taken. The thoroughness of the investigation left a lot to be desired.
So how would you describe that Costello report?
In a word, whitewash. A cover-up.
The report was only seen by a handful of senior officers. It wasn't disclosed to the detectives investigating Kevin Nunes' murder or any of the lawyers involved in the forthcoming trial. That meant the defence had no inkling that there were serious questions about the reliability of Simeon Taylor's evidence. If they'd known, the case might have collapsed.